right, the last time we played this song coming on the air, it was not the same vibe we have today. The last time we played La Bamba, you had the shoulder in a sling, coming off shoulder surgery, but it's all good now. And that obviously is the Oilers winning and punching a ticket to the Cup Final. Back in the Stanley Cup Final.
What a day for Canada. Does everybody think it's cool to play in Canada now? What a scene out there. It's so draining to hear everybody, playing in a Canada market, put together a crap team, underachieve. It sucks. People are so hard on. Look how awesome that was. What a week for Canada. The Canadian Open, your boy Bobby MacIntyre wins the Canadian Open. The Oilers punch their ticket. Great day for Canada.
I love it. You're so right. I'm glad you brought that up.
Like, seriously.
It's the number one reason I want Edmonton to win is to end the stupid narrative that has existed for 30 years that you can't win.
People writing articles about the tax breaks in Florida and how it's so I'm just so sick of it.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, put together a good team with guys that want to win and that will find a way to get it done. And that scene in Edmonton was pretty awesome last night. I don't know, looked pretty cool to me. Everybody was pretty fired up. That looked like the NHL to me, Hayes. It looked like the NHL.
I like it.
Yeah, it was.
I'm with you.
I'll tell you, it was loud. Like I was, my ears were hurting. Like, and I like loud music, all of that type of stuff. But the building was ready to pop. I'm telling you, it was. It was tense. The last 10. When did Marchment score that goal? Was it 10 minutes left?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, there was about 10:40 left, and
there would have been you need an underpants cam on the crowd from the 10-minute mark on because, the defendant only put up 10 shots, all of that. I mean, I just felt. After watching it, I felt like McDavid wasn't going to let it happen. I'm sorry.
Noodles, let me guess. You were there. Were you in the building?
I was at the game last
night. How did you not tell us you were there? Why would we wait till 4 p.m.? You never said you were going there. You never mentioned it. We just saw you Friday
we're in a group chat. We're in a group chat where everything is discussed.
Oh. What are you doing out there? You just go to the game?
Heading to the game. That's all you could have wrote.
So are you going to be there for 3 weeks? Are you coming home?
No, I'm coming back. No, I'm coming back tomorrow. I had some meetings today, so I'm like, okay, I'll wrap it around the game last night.
Mysterious meetings that had to happen in person in Edmonton last night. Interesting.
Well,
I like that.
I'm sure I told you guys. I'm sure I told you guys on Friday.
Not a peep. Yeah. How would we know? You got to tell us. So how was it? I guess give us the whole breakdown. You were there. What was it like?
I mean, the building walking up, there was a buzz, right? Like you could just, you're walking up. I got there, the game was at 6:00 local, so you're walking in at whatever it was, 5:45, and it's just, there's that nervous energy. I think, from my friends and the people around me, it's like they got to do it tonight. In people's minds there, they didn't want that team to have to get on the bird. Pete DeBoer 8-0 in Game 7s, all of that type of stuff. You're like, this is your opportunity to punch it because if it goes back to Game 7, you never know. A guy stinks the joint out in net. You get a bad bounce. It goes to overtime. You never know. And then watching live, the McDavid, that move was all world. That could be one of the best moves I've seen, period. It was ridiculous live incredible. Because we had good seats and you could see it. And I feel like he did the old 10 and 2. With the skates, he went sideways, it was ridiculous. But then, I was mentioning, the Marchment goal, there was some nervous energy, put it that way. The guys around me were just losing their minds because it's okay, are they going to piss this away? They haven't tried to score. They haven't been doing anything. They were just flipping it out and getting back in and trying to defend. I mean, they relied on the goaltender. I'll tell you what, the goaltender. Yeah,
they did, man. That was quite the redemption story, really, throughout the whole series. And I'd go back to Game 1, double overtime on the road, where Skinner played extremely well, and he outdueled Jake Ottinger in a big game, kind of set the tone, and they just won 3 in a row, and he gave up 4 total goals, 4 goals in 3 games, where that's a goalie who got pulled, 2 weeks ago. and was eating popcorn watching Calvin Pickard keep the season alive and give him an opportunity at redemption. And he certainly did that. He was phenomenal. Like, Skinner was outstanding last night. And as much as the Oilers, they were on their heels and they were kind of playing it safe. And there's no question Dallas had, more opportunities, more shots, more sustained waves of opportunity. I didn't think the Oilers, though, were, breathing heavy or completely under siege. Like, I actually thought they played pretty well and pretty smart. And they had a great start. You get up 2-0. That building's going crazy. That McDavid goal was phenomenal.
They got
it done. He sets up the Hyman goal.
How about
That's
that?
it.
Like
you can't do that forever. You can't play like that the rest of the way.
No.
But on a one-off, it doesn't matter. It's totally who cares? No one's going to remember that they got outshot 35-10. Who cares? They won the game.
It looked like the journey for the Dallas Stars started to take a chunk of flesh out of them, going through Vegas and going through Colorado. Their young guys started looking a little young, and their older guys started looking a little old. And altogether, they did generate. They had some shots, but it just looked like they were running out of mojo. And there's one thing that would have gave them life is if they had won that game and brought it back home. So you talk about the nervous energy. That's why it was present there, because everybody knows that if they had scored another one and somehow found a way to win that in OT, they would have had big-time energy heading back home. You mentioned Pete DeBoer's record in Game 7s. It was like that would have jazzed them back up. But they were just like everyone's looking at the shots, and it's like, oh, my God, Edmonton's only got 10 shots. It seemed like some of their younger guys were looking young and their older guys were looking old, and altogether they just couldn't muster up enough to get it done last night. So good for Edmonton. As I mentioned, great for Canada. Canadian market, great stuff. I love seeing it. Love it, love it.
Oh, you make a great point there, because when I was watching, I thought to myself, Pavelski had one tip in the high slot, I think in the first period, which was a really nice tip. But outside of that, he did look 39 years old. Like, he had a couple looks and that. But, that Stankoven's the guy. Like, he's going to be a really good player. Mm-hmm. Like, the same thing, Johnston. Like, they're good players now. But I'm talking, like, when they got chops in the league, they're going to be really good players. But I thought Hintz was quiet. I thought Robertson was quiet. Like, the guys, Duchesne was quiet. Like, the guys that they relied on, Sagan, like, Ben tried. He was pushing back and that. But it just, I don't know. Like, after that first goal, I said to myself, I always hear your voice, Hayes, sometimes. It's like, that guy's not going to be denied. Like, I just felt like the power play, we said coming in the series, or I said, the goalie's going to have to steal you one, McDavid's going to have a game, and the power play is going to get, well, it was kind of a combination in these last three games. That really what it was. It was Skinner, McDavid, and the power play, and then, other characters chipping in. Connor Brown looks really good. Like, all of a sudden his game is turned around. But, like, some of the depth showed up for the Oilers, and Dallas, some of that depth kind of went away, unfortunately, at the wrong time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Edmonton, they outplayed them, I think, in Game 4, certainly in Game 5. And last night, again, it's irrelevant. No one's going to remember shot discrepancy or slot chances. They're going to remember McDavid's goal, Skinner playing the way he played, and the Oilers punching a ticket back to the Cup Final for the first time in 18 years. And this is what we've been discussing for a decade now, since McDavid was in the OHL, when he was in Erie and he was chopping up the CHL, and everyone knew it was coming. We knew he was going first overall. We knew he was a generational talent. We didn't know where he was going. We didn't know who was going to win the lottery, but we knew whoever got him was going to get a player who was going to blossom into what we've been witnessing here for the better part of 7-8 years, basically since he walked into the league. But he's been the undisputed best player in the league for at least 6 or 7 years. And the history of this league tells you if you wear the crown for that long, you win. And Sid wore it, he won. You could argue Ovi had it at times, he won. Lemieux had it. Gretzky had it. Bobby Orr had it. Guy Lafleur had it. You can go down the list of all these all-time great players. Gordie Howe had it. They all won. And it was a matter of finding out how he was going to get there. He has not won yet, and the Oilers have not won yet. It's a team sport. It's not only about McDavid, but you're 4 wins away. And that mentality that you spoke of watching him last night or him against Dallas, like he can't be stopped. He's not going to allow it. This will be the toughest test. Like, Florida is waiting, and Florida is a nasty bunch.
Machine.
and they are waiting, and they're at home, and they have cup experience, and they're healthy, and they're sitting there saying, bring it. And the question is, can Edmonton continue to play the way they've played basically ever since they fired the coach? Since they hired Knobloch, like statistically, they've been the best team in the league. And I think it's a great final. I think it's a phenomenal final. And I think even though we got to wait until Saturday, which sucks, and it's going to be ridiculous. 3 weeks until a Game 7, what keeps it alive is the Oilers being in it, and a Canadian team. And you got the Canadian media that's going to be engaged. Because if it was Dallas, Florida, it'd be dead by Saturday. Dead up here. People would just be like, see you later, let us know what happens. You get a Canadian team, you get McDavid in a cup final, you can't ask for anything bigger or better. I mean, really, you can't. And it's a legacy moment for him, for Draisaitl, for Bouchard, Skinner, Knobloch. Ken Holland has a chance to solidify his legacy as a guy that did incredible things in Detroit, and now he's 4 wins away from doing it in Edmonton. It's just it sets up so well for a storybook. I wouldn't say ending because McDavid's still in his prime, but he's got to get one. You know, you're only going to get so many opportunities. Like if the Oilers don't win this, when's he going to get his next crack at it? Maybe it's next year. Maybe it's in 3 years. Maybe it's in 5. Maybe it's never.
Yeah. Dude,
like,
all these
McDavid's got to get one here.
All these teams that have been in the Final Four, it's so difficult to win. And it just goes to show you what Tampa did going to 3 Cup Finals was insane because the way things are, the way people pick away at the garbage dumpster and get free agents for a year and it's success, like everything's going to look totally different. And older guys are a year older. It's like who knows what that Dallas team is going to look like next year. Although they have great young guys and they're veteran guys, it's just it might have been their chance in the last couple of years, so you never know. And the same thing with the Oilers. Guys disappear, guys go away, guys aren't the same. It's so different. It's so difficult to replicate, and it's so hard to get to the finals. You got to strike. But I'll tell you what, I'm not going to say. I mean, I guess you could say Florida would be a heavy favorite right now, regardless of McDavid or Draisaitl being on the other side. Mm-hmm. But they got their hands full. Like. That Florida team's a different beast. And then at the end of it, when you got the physicality, their offense, the way they push the pace offensively, the way they forecheck, they got Bobrovsky back there, who, when he gets dialed in, like Ottinger never got like that in this series. He had his moments, but Bobrovsky could just literally say you're not scoring in this series, and they got a serious problem.
Yeah. On FanDuel right now, Florida's minus 130 to win the series, Edmonton plus 108. I think that's appropriate. For me, it's real close to a pick'em. I could sit here and make a case for both sides. I think all three of us could. I think everyone in the hockey world could. Yeah. I think it's reasonable that Florida is a slight favorite. That's how I would lean. I think the Cup experience from a year ago is beneficial. Is it the be-all and end-all? Of course not. But they literally saw it last year. Yeah. They saw what happened.
Nothing will be a surprise. The media, all the attention, how it's handled, how it operates.
It's significant. It's a significant leg up. You got Bob, like you said, home ice. I mean, the slimmest of margins between these two teams. Matchups are going to count. Maurice is going to get home ice, one more time than Knobloch if it goes 7. And I also think, McDavid, best player in the world. Draisaitl, I have believed for years, is the most clutch playoff performer in the world. This Barkov cat is a different beast. Yeah. Go talk to Panarin and Zibanejad and Kucherov and Point. McDavid's got something coming. Now, I think McDavid can and will win the battle. I don't dispute he will a few times. I guarantee you he won't run over him. There's no way. No, Barkov's too good, and he's playing like an absolute beast right now. That battle, that matchup, that's worth the price of admission. Watching those two go at it.
You saw that stat, right? Kucherov, 0 goals. Pasternak got 1, and Panarin feathers, nothing. Right? So
he just smothers them when he's on the ice.
Well, he's so big and strong, and he can move and all of that.
12 feet long.
It's crazy.
But that's the challenge is, and this is where when you lay each other on top of each other, like the matchups. Barkov's going to go after McDavid. This is where 29's got to be separated.
Big time.
And that's where Draisaitl's got it. RNH, the Hyman, guys. I think Evander Kane is really important in this series.
Yeah, he hasn't been himself, Jamie.
No, he's hurt. He's hurt.
Yeah, usually he's number 3 on the list. It goes McDavid, Draisaitl, or vice versa. And then Evander Kane is the guy next on the list where it's like,
well,
that guy's scoring goals. But what the Florida Panthers do to you, and it's not any different than the competition that Edmonton's played, but they just grab their lineup of the other team and they just start checking guys off because they play such a great team game. And you saw it with the New York Rangers. Zibanejad kind of was like, I'm not sure if I'm doing this. Panarin was like, I don't know. They just go down the list and say, are you ready to battle every single shift and do the little things? Maybe check mark or X, and as soon as you cross enough guys out, that's the Florida Panthers advantage, and they're like, we got you.
Yeah.
If they get enough X's of guys that are like, are they going to be willing to do this for 7 games? That's where they're going to win. Because they will push you to the limits every shift, every simple play, every fundamental. And if you don't want to do it, they'll expose you. It's the ultimate compliment. I told you, Paul Maurice, one of the great compliments he could receive is that his team dictates play. Another one is they will try to push every single guy in the other roster out of the series. And for the most part, they're going to see if you're going to be in or not.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, the one-on-one, we mentioned McDavid and Barkov, and you mentioned, okay, that opens up Draisaitl. Guess who's waiting for him? Sam Bennett is waiting for him.
Yeah.
So let's go. Guy, he'll show up. Draisaitl's better, clearly better, and has more skill. He doesn't have more will. Bennett will fight tooth and nail for everything he's got, and he'll cheap shot him. He'll try to get him. And, we're 16 minutes in here. We haven't even mentioned Matthew Tkachuk. Tkachuk is the X factor of X factors. You want to talk about Evander Kane. I'll trump you over the top with a Matthew Tkachuk. If
and
he
there's probably still a bunch of those Matthew Tkachuk moments left in the tank, which is scary.
Absolutely. It's going to be a great series. I can't 100%. Wait for it.
And the reason why I brought Evander Kane's name up is exactly what you were just talking about, Brian. Because Sam Bennett might skate up and punch McDavid in the face. He might just do that. But that's where Evander Kane has got to go and attack him and fight him.
And he can and he will. He's tough as nails.
And he can and he will. That's where I'm
Yep.
Florida will play a skill game, but they'll take it to the ground too. And Edmonton's got some guys. Corey Perry's he'll be a guy with his nose in there, and they've got some guys that'll do that too. But that's where I think it's. If you're going to counter what Florida's throwing at you, you got to be able to stand right in there, whether it's punch for punch, skate for skate, skill for skill, power play, penalty kill, all of that. And that's what I talk about it. You lay the rosters on top of each other, and you see who gets pushed out of the game. Florida's not going to get pushed out. If Edmonton
I don't think Edmonton
back,
will either, man.
I don't think they will, but they're not. It's their first time. This is their first rodeo.
Yeah,
right? I was impressed, guys. The last couple of weeks, just watching closely with Edmonton. It's not about their goal scoring. Their ability defensively to take away time and space has been impressive for a team that's in the past. And I would have loved, the first question I would have asked Connor McDavid, or maybe not the first one, but I would have said, how different does this look and feel to what you thought it would when you guys thought it was 6-1 every night? You thought that was the route to success. How different is this than what you thought? Because it's probably a hell of a lot different. And their ability to kill penalties and do the ugly things, block shots, get pucks in and out, it's probably way different if you ask their best players what they originally thought that the process looked like. I bet you it would be way different.
Yeah, you're right. And that penalty kill, man, they're breaking records out there.
Top 2 penalty kill teams in the league playing each other in the finals.
No, it sets up beautifully for a great series. I think it can break either way. And, we got all week to tee it up. Struddy will join us. Jason Strudwick will join us in about 10. And, Corey Perry, you mentioned, first guy in NHL history, 5 different teams he's going to play for in the Cup Final.
That guy was dying for a job. The lockout, not the lockout, the COVID bubble. And Montreal said, all right, just come play.
Right.
And he's back going to the finals again.
It's all he does, man. And we still don't really know what happened in Chicago, but when he got out of there, he made the right choice picking Edmonton, clearly. He's in a Cup Final, and I think he had a number of teams knocking on his door, and he picked the Oilers, and now the Oilers are in a Stanley Cup Final. So it's going to be a fun week. And Struddy will join us. A lot of fans out there in Edmonton causing quite a stir over the last few days. You would be one of them noodles. I guess you were in the building last night.
I'm not a fan, though. I
you
went
know what
with
I
my
mean.
buddy.
Just Edmontonians. You're in
I wore
there.
a black shirt last night. I was the only black shirt.
But why not root for the home
building.
team? I mean, come on. It's. I hear what you're saying.
You know what? It was great to be there in the atmosphere and stuff. I love watching hockey. I was looking at Pete DeBoer in the back of his head. I'm like, God, I look at. I have friends on both teams, but it was to take in atmosphere. I've told you this, Hayes. The night you and I were sitting in the box when it was Edmonton, Toronto.
Yeah, Saturday night.
It's nice, right? A Saturday night in Toronto, You like the buzz of these things. I like people watching. I love seeing this, and it was great. The fans were going bananas.
Oh yeah,
bananas. I haven't seen that in a while, but you've been around a lot of fans that go crazy. But the city's enjoying it right now, from what I can see, and like I say, we'll see what happens in the finals. Nothing's been decided yet.
Nothing's sealed yet. Nothing's sealed yet. All right, Jason Strudwick coming up. We've got Rick Bowness on the show today. We'll catch up with Rick. We're looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And Brad Faxon on Bob MacIntyre, my boy, my Scotsman, picking up a win at the RBC Canadian Open. What a week it was. That was great finish. Came down to 18, which is such a great closing hole. That course is so.
Dude, shout out to the volunteers. There's so many volunteers that worked. And by the way, I saw Hayes, your biggest nightmare. On number one, a volunteer right before Rory swung said, "Quiet, please."
Dude.
Right in his backswing. And they both turned around and the caddy goes, exactly what you say. The caddy went, "Just don't say anything."
Yes.
Anything.
Hold the sign up. You can't be quiet,
Dude,
please.
He gripped his club, addressed the ball, and he was about to pull the trigger, and he goes, "Quiet, please." I thought of you. I'm like, I want to rewind that and send that to Hayes.
I know that
but
move, man.
The people that took care of that golf course, it looks so good on TV.
Phenomenal.
The superintendent out there and all of his staff.
Everyone at Hamilton.
Because that looked amazing, and it played amazing.
Yeah, it did. I mean, all the players were talking about it. They just said, just an incredible place. I think Golf Canada, RBC Canadian Open, they found a great mix. Unbelievable course, cool party, great vibe. I was there on Saturday. It was a scene.
You were there.
You had some fans there. As soon as we thought that Duthie, we thought Hayes is a fraud. I wanted it kind of dead because I'm sick of it. It's like it just started up again and got a new flame, and someone poured gasoline on it.
Oh,
and now
man,
it's
bigger than
worse
ever. Bigger than ever over the weekend. And it was Duthie saying, if you can get it on CBS, we'll do this or do that.
What did those goons in the mullet say when they put eyes on you?
They were here for a bachelor party. There were 12 of them.
Nice.
And they were in mullets, hats, Hayes is a fraud, and they had my day one TSN pick on the back.
Saw that.
That's the worst part. I wanted to sucker these guys. I'm like, listen, Hayes is a fraud, whatever, we're all having a good time. Can you put a more flattering picture than that one? Day one, arm up, bad shirt, starving. I'm like, that's just so unnecessary.
There was a plate of just suicide wings waiting beside
wings
you.
Wings and poutine and anything that was going to make me pass out right afterwards was right in front of me. But they were great guys. They were awesome guys. The whole environment was incredible. And Bob MacIntyre is your RBC Canadian Open winner. So we're on the
cool
weekend.
With his dad on the bag, too,
really
right?
cool. Dougie MacIntyre, the most Scottish handle of all time. Doug MacIntyre.
Well, that interview post with Amanda, I was like, I don't understand one word these two guys just said.
I know. They're just speaking in
they're just like, I'm a green color, I'm a grass color. It was just like, what the hell are you talking about?
I know. I got to find a YouTube clip. There's this great YouTube clip. I'll find it, and I'll send it to Doogie, of a woman, some journalist that's in Glasgow, talking about how, the accent is so tough to understand. And she interviews this guy. I got to play it. I can't do justice to it. We'll play it.
This guy got into the Memorial Field, and all the elevated events, and he says, we're going back to Scotland tomorrow just to get drunk, and then they're going to Ohio to play in the Memorial.
Right.
That's how important it is to him to go back to Scotland.
He's going to fly home,
get
floor
wasted,
it with the boys.
and then go back on a bird.
Yeah. He will be landing in Akron,
he will
Ohio.
shoot 84 at Memorial round one.
Yes, he will. He couldn't care less. Either everyone makes a cut. Everyone's gonna have a good time. It might be a T55 type of thing, but it's a smaller field. He'll be hungover. He won't care. He'll probably shoot the lights out. It won't even matter. All right. So Brad Faxon later this afternoon. Rick Bowness. Jason Strudwick coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Robert MacIntyre, full withdrawal. He's out of the Memorial.
What?
Yeah, I just saw this.
Dude, it's an elevated event.
I think that's crazy. Like, I get it. He wants to go home. His girlfriend, his dad, his friends. You got to go home in 3 weeks. You have to play the Memorial, U.S. Open, Travelers. You have to.
Yeah.
You're hot. Make money. Find, world ranking points. Get into the President's Cup maybe if you stay hot. Like, I respect it because he's like, screw it. Screw Jack Nicklaus, man.
But that was his shot. That was
his
his shot to get into all these,
I know.
He's now into these events and he pulls the pin.
Pulled the
That's
shoot.
insane.
Pulled the shoot on the Memorial, so he's not going. Like, great course,
ridiculous.
great field, massive money. This guy is in Scotland somewhere, absolutely having the time of his life.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. Face down with a kilt on. That's
yes.
it. He's just
yes.
gooned out of his tree.
He will be. He will be. Okay, I found that clip. We'll play it later this hour of a journalist asking people on the streets of Glasgow to explain the language and some of the sayings. It's pretty good. We'll get to it a little bit later this hour. But here's Jason Strudwick. Wow. What a scene, Struddy.
Congrats, Jason.
Buddy.
Yes.
What were you up to? Were you streaking last night? What were you doing last night in Edmonton?
Well, you know what? I was actually pretty calm. And to be honest, what did I do? Sure, I worked with Stuart Skinner when he was in grade 9. Was that the difference? Probably. Set the course for his career and to this victory last night. But I actually had a big group of people at my house watching a game with my family and friends. I wanted to share with my kids. So I went to the 3 and 4. I didn't go to game 6.
Wow. Man of the people. I love it. Good for you, Struddy. Well, it was quite Stuart Skinner, if it wasn't for you and your tutelage back in the day, they probably lose 4-2, 5-2 last night because, it was a great start. Place is electric. And then Edmonton was like, we're just going to do whatever we have to and hold on. And it's not how, it's how many, right? They win the game. It doesn't matter how it played out, but Skinner was great, and they're off to a Cup final.
Yeah, it was tough. It wasn't. I don't think that's how they would have drawn up that game to play. But I think you look at game 4 and 5. The Oilers, I think for 150 minutes of those games, just completely dominated Dallas, and you knew Dallas was going to have a hard push. But when Connor scored that first goal, an amazing goal, and then got Hyman to score where I've never seen Hyman score from, which is anything past 4 feet. He was like, okay, this might be enough. And I think that they maybe got a little bit more tentative, and Dallas really started pushing. And they weren't perfect defensively, but they're good enough just to allow 1 goal in there. And so probably a game you don't deserve to win, but they got, the star power did it. And that's when you have Connor McDavid or these star players. They are some nights enough to carry the distance, and your goalie, and you hang on, and you get the win. Again, you don't deserve it, but that's 4 wins. They don't really care how. So you go 3 wins in a row against a team that people thought was deep and couldn't be beat in the Western Conference.
Struddy, how different if you were to talk to the main characters of the Oilers, and you had to ask them 5 or 6 years ago where they had these aspirations of doing this, how different did it feel, or what they were actually doing, how different was it than they thought back then? Like, they wanted to win 7-5 like all young players do. If you ask McDavid and Draisaitl, how different do you think they would say it was?
It's incredible, and I remember the moment that it started to change. It was the day they traded for Mattias Ekholm, and Mattias said that this team has to become comfortable winning 1-0 or going into the third period winning 1-0 and just winning by that. You don't have to score 5 goals, and he's been saying that. They've been trying to get tough, and then a really tough start, and Knobloch came in, and he's got them to believe it. And not only does he have Connor and Leon believing that works, and then everyone else does it, he's empowered the bottom 6 and the so-called depth players to have roles. Those role players are absolutely killing it on the penalty kill right now. Just killing it. Even Calvin Pitt games against Vancouver. Great of hockey from him. So he's made the big guys understand that it's okay to not have to take chances all the time and try to score. And then he's got the depth players believing that they're an important part of the team, which every time you hear a Stanley Cup, they always say it. It took all 25 guys there. They never say, well, it's just me and this guy. It was all 25, the trainers, the coaches, and they talk about how everyone was involved, and Knobloch's got him believing that. So, I think that they're on that journey with Ekholm, but I think Knobloch's the one who really drove it home, and he now has everyone doing the right thing, basically every night in the playoffs.
Struddy, who's had the biggest redemption turnaround for you? I'll throw some names at you. Connor Brown, who didn't score all season, pretty much. Darnell Nurse, who people is as recently as a week ago, less than a week ago, we're all over. Or Stuart Skinner, who was watching Calvin Pickard in games 4 and 5.
I think we can all agree Stuart Skinner's probably the easiest one for that. But, when I'm going to go Darnell Nurse. I look at Darnell and the way he can play and the way he can affect a game, and he's a bully. And when he's a bully, I think it enables other players to be bullyish as well on the Oilers. And he's kind of the ringleader of all that. Not to get too far ahead, but when you're looking at the Panthers, they've got a lot of guys that think they're bullies and they want to play that way. So Darnell has to be ready to meet that challenge and to, push his team and his teammates to do that. And then finally, Connor Brown, he's playing the way that, Oilers fans were hoping he'd play to start the year. He's skating and he's forechecking, killing penalties, and he's kind of been relentless on the puck. I think he had a 3-game point streak, which, seemed impossible when he got to game 82.
I don't know if we lost Struddy there. He's holding on for dear life. Maybe we'll see if we get him back.
I thought he just stopped talking.
It's like a mic drop. Perfect commentary on Darnell
He had
Nurse.
a 3-game point streak.
Yeah. Listen, it's a good question. I mean, I lean Brown because he's a friend of the show. We love Connor Brown. It's such a cool story. The guy, he had to be a healthy scratch at one point.
He's moving the way he used to move. You watched him out there.
He's skating.
He's
skating.
That's his whole
really,
game.
really well.
And when you have that surgery, it takes a long time. He's not a kid anymore. And we said it last week. You pick and choose who you stick it out with, because it would have been easy to say at the trade deadline, we got to make this guy disappear somehow.
Mm-hmm.
You got to pick
there was
and
a
choose
point
who you
where
want to stick with it.
If he didn't play a certain amount of games, his bonus wouldn't have kicked in, and they were talking about that, like just waive him and don't let him hit the number.
Well,
where it
I
kicks in next year.
I should have added one more onto the pile is Ken Holland, because every time they would lose a game, it would trend on Twitter. This guy's an idiot. He's blow cap space. He signed Jack Campbell. That it could have been a fourth there. We'll get Struddy to weigh in on that too.
Yeah, Struddy, what are people in Edmonton saying about Ken Holland right now?
Well, I think it's a bit of indication. But when he arrived, he just said, I want to try to improve the team every year and give us a chance in the playoffs. And I think he's done that. Look at some of the guys. So we talk about Connor Brown. The way he's playing, that's like an extra player, because he wasn't like that all year. Dylan Holloway was mostly in the minors this year. He often finds a role with this team, and he's playing some decent minutes for this team. Philip Broberg, mostly in the minors all year. He contributed in this playoff run. So there's another guy. So it's almost like they've added 2 or 3 players. And then he just mentioned Carrick and Henrique. So it's almost like 5 kind of new players towards the end or after the season who found a role or found their legs on this team. And that's just contributing to the depth and to the roster that Knobloch has to use. But, with Ken, I give him a lot of credit. Like he's had some signings he'd like back. For sure, the Jack Campbell one. I think that, he would say you want that one back. But he's had some really good moves. The Ekholm, the Hyman move, bringing Knobloch in, Coffey coming as an assistant coach. All these things, they all add up. And, it's again, his initial press conference, he said, I can't make one trade to make this team great, but you just keep trying to improve and add all the time. And they've done that. Now they've put themselves in a position in the Stanley Cup Finals against a really good, hardworking, skilled Florida Panthers team, but they kind of know how they have to play. And I think they've got a good chance to compete with Florida because of this team that Ken has put together.
Struddy, I know Noodles and yourself, this has all happened in your backyard, but are you happy for the Canadian market? Because I am, because It makes me sick. The talk about playing in Canada and how much it sucks and the weather and the cold. Like, you guys were both in the building, well, Noodles was anyway, surprising us at the beginning of the show, Struddy. We had no idea. But, like, just to see that scene and how much better that would be if it was in some non-traditional market, I just feel great that it's in a Canadian market to see how awesome that was. I'm not sure about you.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there was 3 home games this year, this last series. I went to the first 2, and Noodles went to the one last night. And I love sports, right? I can watch anything. I went to my son's basketball game yesterday. His game was brutal. It wasn't fun to watch. The one decided was great, and I was watching that one. Even my son's like, we were watching our game, we were watching that one. So, like, I love sport. I love emotion, right? And so you get in that building, and it's exciting. It is so loud, and Noodles, I'm sure he spoke to it, but it is so loud. Like, in Game 4, they scored 2 goals, and then the Oilers scored 2 goals back, and then I think it was Janmark and Draisaitl scores right away. I honestly thought the roof was going to blow off it. My son's 13 beside me. He's like, Dad, this is crazy. I'm like, I can't hear what you're saying, but it was so much fun to be in there. So that's hockey in Canada, and I'm not putting down anything that happens in the States, but it is different here, right? I do believe it's different. So you heard the players after the game yesterday talk about how these fans are so good and great, and they're loving this journey too. And when you get in a Canadian city and you have a good Canadian team, we've seen in other markets. I remember when Felix Potvin and Gilmore took that Toronto team on a good run. When you had the Canucks go on their runs, I mean, it is different. You enjoy that ride with your team, and that the players get to share with their fans, and it's been crazy. Like, Edmonton last night was just absolutely on fire. The whole city's on fire. And quite frankly, we need a week off just to recover, because come next Saturday, we'll be doing it all over again. And you were in there last night. It was nuts.
Yeah, I was just sitting there hanging out, and I had my popcorn and enjoyed myself. But the building, you and I were texting, like, it was beyond, like, the roof. Like, I don't know. That's the loudest I've ever been in a building, and I've been in some buildings that people go nuts.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
Well, the angst too. Like, you know what? When Marchman scored, what was it? 10 minutes left. Like, there was an underpants cam concern, because you could feel the angst. You could feel the angst in there.
Stankoven almost had that from the slot where he got that off quick, and I was like, that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, they held on.
You could feel it coming, though. Yep. That was the thing. Like, people were into it, but you could feel like, okay, Dallas is going to have that final push. But the building was electric, and it's been trending online. People, taking their tops off, and there was some.
What a scene that was in Edmonton.
I'll tell you what. There was. Okay, so to counter that, there was a guy with no tarp on that was walking up the aisle, and he should have put his tarp back on. Put it that way.
Right, there's a trend starting. This is the guys are like, we'll take it from here. Thank you. It's like, oh, awesome. That's what people are looking for.
I think in Calgary in 2004, it was like shirts off for Kippersoft, but there was a few shirts off last night that probably should have been put back on.
No kidding. Yeah, it's great, though. I mean, Edmonton back for the first time since 2006, and, we started the show, and you just talked about it, Struddy. This idea that you can't win in Canada and it's just impossible here. Meanwhile, you look at the statistics.
No, Hayes, let me just interrupt you for it. Like, sucking and saying, oh, everyone's so hard on us. Like, it's just...
Well, exactly. There's a variety of different things. The taxes, the weather, the media, the fan base, it's too much. Yeah, exactly. There's a million different things that are it's always been lazy. It's always been uninformed. Are there benefits to different markets? Of course there are. But ultimately, if you have smart ownership, smart management, good players, you can win.
That want to win.
You can win anywhere. And you look at the statistics. I was thinking about it last night. Habs win in 93. Canucks go there in 94. Flames in 04. Oilers 06. Sens 07. Canucks 2011. Habs 2021. And now Edmonton in 2024. That's 7 Canadian tickets over the last 30 years. Like, there's 32 teams in the league. The problem has been these Canadian teams haven't won. The narrative stays alive because, if Edmonton wins in 06 or the Flames in 04 or Vancouver in 11, it's dead. But it's alive because we get collectively, I say we, it's not like we're playing here, but Canadian teams get to the dance. They just don't close, Struddy. And I would argue over, all those teams I just mentioned, maybe Vancouver in 11, although I think this Edmonton team is better, but that Vancouver team is a great team. Like, this is probably the best chance that a Canadian team's had in 30 years to finally win.
Yeah, and there might be, I think they have a chance, right? And you're playing another great team, so I think that, it's going to be tough no matter where you look. But I'm going to put a theory forward for you guys. I believe that what happens in Canadian markets more so in the American markets is that GMs feel pressure to turn things around quickly. And I'll just go use the example here of Edmonton. They draft McDavid, and instead of just taking their time and be a little bit patient for a couple of years, they make some ill-advised trades or some ill-advised signings that compromise what we can do long term. And I just think that there's a rush at times, not in Winnipeg. I don't think Winnipeg's in a hurry to do anything, but it seems like these other markets at times are in such a rush that it ruins you long term. So I wonder if that's not the pressure because of from the fans that GM feels. Because we've seen it. I mean, I've seen here in Edmonton since McDavid's been here, and they could have, I don't know if they could have got here faster, but it could maybe made it easier, smoother, without rushing from some trades and signings.
Yeah, and you look at Florida though. Also, it's savvy moves. Like Tkachuk was a loud move, but
Biggest
it was
one.
But it was bold, right? He was available. He was going to go to 6 or 7 teams. They said we'll take him. We'll pay whatever the price is. But they got Montour for nothing, Bennett for nothing. They found Verhaeghe and allowed him to blossom. They picked up Reinhart because Buffalo was a mess, and they're like, I guess we got to move off this. There's a lot of different things. Forsling they got for what? For free. I think they got him off waivers, did they not?
I think they got him on waivers.
Those are just savvy plays that any Canadian team could have made. The Leafs could have, the Habs could have, the Oilers could have. They didn't. It wasn't because they were in Florida. They didn't have a tan, so they got to pull off the moves.
In the salary cap era, you have to do – everyone says draft and develop. That's great. And you're going to get Barkov. You're going to get Ekblad. But you have to put the complete package as a management team together. You got to go dumpster diving properly and get guys that want to play down there. You got to find the Verhaeghe and say, bring them in. Trade for Reinhart. It works out. Free agents, all that stuff. It's all got to be put together properly. It's like it can't just be draft and develop. It's insane to think that's all going to work.
It's always more than that.
It's everything.
But it starts
everything.
There. It does start
and
there.
And you got to have some stones to go out and say, we got to give that goalie $10 million to play here. We got to trade for Tkachuk. It's just there's a combination of patience and some stones to pull the trigger on certain things. But it's all got to work out, too. Like, if this all fell flat, like if Matthew Tkachuk didn't work out, Billy Zito probably would have got gassed.
Yeah.
And now they're one of the best teams in the league.
It wasn't that long ago that Bobrovsky was a dumpster fire. Like, it was Alex Lyon who got them into the playoffs.
That's right.
Like, the timing of stuff, everything, it's how you feel. We were just talking about before you came on, Struddy, like Stuart Skinner, let's say he goes back in Game 6 and they lose to Vancouver. He has an off night and they lose to Vancouver. Like, you're looking at his career is a little bit different the way that people look at him in Edmonton. Or they lose in Game 7. Like stuff like that where, this guy has been under duress his last couple of weeks. Like, to have the type of thick skin and battle through it. Because this could have taken a left turn for this guy, and all of a sudden people are saying, Ken Holland stuck with him instead of going and getting, he got Jack Campbell, and that didn't work out, and he didn't get anybody at the deadline, and he stuck with Calvin Pickard. Like, I was thinking about it last night. I'm like, this guy should get his flowers because, statistically, it was a stolen game by the goalie last night. He was that good. And, this guy 2 weeks ago was eating popcorn wearing a baseball cap.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, when you look at him, and now, no matter what happens in this final, right, I think he's securely number one goalie for the Oilers next year. And he'll have won 4 playoff rounds in the last 2 years. Again, I'm not talking about what's going to happen this last round. That's a pretty good, show me other goalies that are 24 years old that have done that for their team. So they kind of got that sorted out, right? Then you talk about, the development of Dylan Holloway, of the stepping forward of Broberg, these different guys getting opportunities, right? And then there are some other guys you're like, okay, maybe he can play a little bit better, but you find out in these playoff runs what you've got and what guys can do. And I think that's really important for the Oilers, not for this year, or not just for this year, but for next year as well. And Stuart Skinner, what he's going to be, because he'll now be his 3rd full year in the NHL next year. And that's a pretty comfortable place to come from, knowing you've won at least 4 playoff rounds in those last 2 years.
All right, Struddy, enjoy yourself this week, buddy. I'm sure we'll do it before Game 1, if not early next week. Thank you for this.
Resting up, buddy. Resting up.
All right. Keep your shirt on out there. Thank you, Strud. Jason Strudwick from the Got Your Back podcast.
How about his son's basketball game? He just said it sucked.
Yeah. Better one across the court. We're watching
the other one.
Yeah. I like that, man. That's honesty.
That's accountability,
That's accountability and honesty, and we appreciate that. All right, Rick Bonus coming up. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Shout out to our boy Fluff. CT Pan, man. I recalled him. New Fluff.
CT Pan. I'll never cheer for CT. First of all, when Fluff calls CT and says, "You want me on the bag this week?" you say, "Fluff, take a rest."
Yeah.
Fluff can't do it anymore. So Fluff blows his ankle out, and our buddy from Aurora shows up, and he takes the bag, and he's a legend. And yeah, Fluff's having a tough go.
It was wet. It's so hilly in Hamilton.
So our buddy grabs the bib, and he's ready to rock. And I don't know what happened, if CT looked at him and said, "I'm getting a professional, and you're gassed," or what happened. But he gassed this guy, too.
Yeah. Gave him one hole.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Fluff was down and out, Fluff. And then our boy comes in, and he was jacked. I mean, he's there to have a good time. And CT Pan's like, "No, scram, pal. You gave me one hole. Not
no,
good
I
enough."
think what happened is some other dude showed up and is like, "I'm a caddie. Like,
yes,
I'm some kind of caddie." So, but that's ignorant, too, because that guy was having the time of his life wheeling up the hill there. He was loving it.
He was loving it. It didn't help. He dropped the putter head cover like immediately. CT Pan wasn't happy about that. I don't know. I mean, it is tough because CT Pan's a professional. He's trying to make some money, and this, who's to say this guy has any clue what the etiquette of golf is?
Dude, when you're just begging for someone to carry, it's either that or CT carries his own.
Right. Why would that be such a big issue? Like I get it. It's a tour bag. But you can carry your own bag. Come on, CT Pan. Get out there and figure it out. But we're thinking of Fluff, man. Because it was wet, and again, it's hilly,
I think that's
man.
Game over for Fluff. He's got to rest.
It's tough.
He's got to rest.
Well, how old is he?
A legend. He's been around the game for a long time.
Yeah, he's got some mileage on him, man.
Yeah, he does.
That's enough.
Hour 2 coming up. Rick Bonus will join us. Jays Orioles starting tonight. We'll tee that up as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.